Palestine, mate. Come on, peace in the Middle East. That's all we want, yeah?
You're from Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the numbers in Syria? Bashar al-Assad
Yeah, I
killed?
know. Yeah. Okay.
Do you know that
Again, I feel this might be my grandpa talking here because he's obviously Bashar al-Assad, but I feel like there's a bit of propaganda towards that too, like the whole.
Isn't it funny you suddenly don't believe how many people Bashar al-Assad has butchered?
It's funny you say that because last night I was saying that. So basically, I feel like this is a continuous thing that's happening. Yes, Bashar al-Assad, maybe from the propaganda point of view, that he is gassing his own people. I'm not sure 100%.
Forget about the gassing. How many people has Bashar al-Assad killed in his war?
I wouldn't know.
Why are you not so passionate about that? Why don't you care so much? Why is the focus so much on this conflict next door that you clearly don't know that much about? Last week, as I wrapped up an interview outside the Melbourne Magistrates Court, a man walked past me exclaiming his support for Palestine. However, unlike other ignorant people who have done the same thing to me before, this bloke was at least willing to engage in respectful and even friendly dialogue.
Palestine, mate. Come on, peace in the Middle East. That's all we want, yeah?
Okay, do you want to talk about it?
We'll talk about it quickly.
Yeah. On camera?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay. I am always up for a good conversation about anything.
Yes.
Okay. All right, brother. Thanks
Yes.
for the conversation.
That's right, mate.
So you walk past, you
So
call out
free,
free
yeah.
Palestine, peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So what do you think exactly? What does peace in the Middle East look to you? And how did you form that?
That's a very
opinion?
good question. So what I'd want is probably no violence, people to live in peace, more love, not hate. For everyone to have a kind of a happy medium where everyone can get along and meet the needs of and respect each other's needs. I feel like, to be honest, I follow you on Instagram. I see a lot of your posts. I reckon you're a bit opinionated towards Israel, obviously. So I feel like you could not create so much negativity through that.
Okay. So let me ask you: when you look at any kind of post, do you think I get something wrong when it comes to that?
I think you can exaggerate the truth a little bit. I know you'll have a different point of view to what I have.
But the facts are the facts. So, like, what can you give me an example of something that I've exaggerated that you believe
okay. Actually, that's a good point. I think you had a post about saying that Hamas had bombed Israel, so that they attacked Israel and that they're terrorists, for example. Which I feel that there's nothing different between rockets coming from your side onto their side and them going onto. So I feel like you kind of paint Palestine in a real negative kind of way as terrorists and also Hamas.
So you don't think Hamas are terrorists?
I think they're just people that are trying to stand up for their right to live in a land peacefully.
So breaching the border, attacking civilians, raping women, killing babies, kidnapping 250.
I don't condone any of that. Obviously,
but you say that's so is that terrorism or not?
Well, I think terrorism is not defined by what they do. I think it's like by the organisation. So, for example, I don't think Israel. I think Israel,
hold on.
I think Israel basically does the exact same thing. They cross the border. They do raids and things like that against these kind of countries too. So I think it's what's perceived in the media and the way we look at it as in, this is a government organised group compared to this is a group of, radicals, for example. So
you should give me one example where Israel went in and targeted civilians.
I've been following it I'm Syrian, for example, right?
Syrian?
Yeah. My parents are
Muslim or?
No, I'm Christian.
Christian, yeah.
So I've kind of followed it throughout my whole life, so I can kind of see the propaganda from both sides. So that's what I think, what I was saying I think everyone needs to meet their own needs in order to live peacefully. So I kind of think, I can't give you an example off the top of my head, but I mean, there are times that, like at the moment, I think it was a couple of days ago, Israel sent a couple of rockets across the border.
They sent rockets across the border?
Yeah.
Indiscriminate rockets, you're saying?
No, I was in I think
they target specific.
Yeah. Did they not?
No. So this is the difference between terrorism and armed forces, right? So terrorism is the act of going out of your way to target civilians, to instill terror, fear for political means, right?
Now, do you think Israel's doing that?
Absolutely not.
Are they killing Palestinians and?
So of course, so in war, civilians always die. That's collateral damage. That is just the sadness of war.
100%.
But do you not see a difference between when you intentionally go in to target civilians and kill civilians and terrorize civilians and rape civilians and kidnap civilians? Remember, there's still over 100 hostages. So do you not think there's a difference between that and an army going in and looking and fighting for the terrorists that are hiding amongst civilians, and unfortunately, the army, to get to the terrorists, end up killing civilians too,
100%.
which is horrible.
100%.
But do you not see the difference between the two?
I think they both end up with the same result, that there's dead civilians. I think that because of what their intentions are doesn't define if they're terrorists or if they're an organisation, for example, because at the end of the day, there's still dead people on the ground that have been bombed and aren't part of the actual conflict. So I find them like both to be not any different from each other.
If October 7 didn't happen, there would be no dead civilians.
100%. Oh, well, there wouldn't be dead civilians, but there would still be the same result where there'd be conflict and each other are bombing each other.
But you're saying that the outcome is the same because both of them, it was clear. There was something triggered it, An action on October 7 triggered it,
100%,
right? So the fact that there was a terrorist act that started the killing of civilians.
Well, I think there's...
What do you want the Israelis? So let me just ask you here. You live in, you've grown up here or grew up?
Melbourne,
grew up in Melbourne. Let's say whether it was on our island or Indonesia, but a terrorist group targeted the northern suburbs. I don't know. I'm assuming you're from the northern suburbs. I don't know. I'm just assuming.
I'm actually Brighton.
Are you Brighton?
Yeah, I'm a Brighton. Drain Glass Plumbing. We live in Brighton.
Cut that bit. I'm just assuming. Syrian. No, but let's say they came into Brighton.
Yeah.
And they had whatever justification they had, and they targeted and they took your sister. Yeah. They raped your sister. They took your father hostage. Would you not want the Australian government, the Australian law enforcement, the Australian army to do whatever they possibly can to bring back your father, to ensure that it never happens again?
100%. But I think there's a bigger issue in place that it should be, how do we get to this area? Where do we get to a place where we're both bombing each other and trying to kill each other and to find political reason behind it? I think that a lot of the whole hate generated from Palestine has come from the loss of their land. I felt...
So let's pretend that's true. Yeah. It's not, but let's pretend it's true. If Israel put down their arms, what do you think would happen? What would the Palestinians do?
Oh, I'm sure there'd be people, like they're not all, I think there'd be a 10% minority of Palestinians or something that would take advantage of that. But at the end of the day, the whole act of killing each other over land and political means is something that can't be labelled as either terrorism or a government organisation because it comes to the same result.
But terrorism is clearly defined. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
True, but it's not any different when they say, when someone from the government basically, bombs, say, Hamas and says, they're hiding behind civilians. Well, I mean, they're both hiding behind civilians in a way. Like, the casualties still civilians.
Of course, in every war. So do you think in World War II we shouldn't have fought back because many millions of civilians died in the response?
No, that's a good point you got there. So I feel like with, say, World War II, there's a lot of things that were out of our control. Not our control, but as in people had conflict in interests and issues. Which with here, I feel like this can be solved pretty quickly because they both harmonically can live together and there's times that there is peace.
And what's stopping it?
To be honest, I feel if Palestinians' needs were met, like they're in a little strip that they can't really get food into water, and
that's just nonsense. Like you talk about propaganda. You talk about propaganda with Bashar al-Assad, but you just believe any propaganda when it comes to the Gaza Strip. What are the needs that you think Israel's not giving to the Palestinians that is justifying their terrorism?
I think they could allow them to have like supplies, like stop the blockades of like supplies going into Palestine. It seems that the condition in Palestine from the news is probably not humane.
Do you trust the news?
No, I don't.
No. So why do you trust it? What? Yeah, no. I'm not saying.
I do generally think some of the things you say have a good point of view.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying trust me. I'm just saying, like, I've been there. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, what you see on the news, like, often is distorted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Distorted.
So if you go, for example, go look at the Gaza Strip prior October 7, up until October 7. I know they love to call it an open air prison. You show me any other prison in the world that looks anything like that. There are beachside resorts, for example. It's not the way that it's presented, right?
From my point of view, I feel like a lot of the news corporations are run by pro-Israeli.
Really? Do you watch the news every night?
No, I mean, I feel like not every night. I do not. No.
So,
but what I'm saying
but it is definitely not pro.
There's a hidden agenda.
There is not. The news is not pro-Israel.
Well, I think there's a big hidden agenda in certain countries.
I agree. Every country has an agenda. Like, if you watch Al Jazeera, it'll be very pro-Hamas.
100%. I just feel like Israel has a lot of protection, and I feel like that their whole weaponry system could be is a good protection for them. So when they're launching missiles saying we're protecting our...
But it clearly wasn't. On October 7, it wasn't enough, and it isn't.
You're mentioning October 7th as one incident, right?
Do you know what October 7 is for Israel, like, in comparison?
I do, but there's been thousands of other incidents too that don't get the same meaning.
In the entire conflict between Israel and Palestine, there has not been a singular incident that matches those numbers. Not one. Point is that this one incident we want to ensure never happens again. And that's why I'm asking you, how do you... I am open to any other suggestion. So I'll tell you, as an Israeli, I would be happy for anything tomorrow meant peace.
Okay, so would I. But what I'm trying to say to you, let me ask you a question. Do you feel Israel, in a well-protected area, shooting missiles across and killing civilians because there's terrorists in that building, sorry, I'm getting dry lips, if there's terrorists in that building, that's justified?
So what I would say to you is it really depends. It depends.
So you're saying it can be justified?
So essentially what you're trying to argue is that a criminal can get away with any crime as long as he surrounds himself with innocent victims. No. And what you're also going to remember is it's their innocent victims. Yeah. So those are the people they govern. Those are the people that elected them 20-something years ago. But it's their people that they're meant to protect, not... So if you...
It's their fault their civilians are dying.
Of course it's their fault. It's Hamas's fault. Every civilian. It's Hamas's fault that the Israeli civilians died, and it's Hamas's fault that they're hiding behind their own civilians. You know what I'd say to you is go to Israel and talk to the average person.
I've actually got an Israeli friend that I have arguments with. So,
but what I'm saying to you is go. You're not a bad guy. Yeah. I can see that, right? And I just think you're misguided. I think if you go to Israel, which you can, you're an Aussie, you go to Israel and you talk to the average person, you'll realise most of them, the majority, are actually more like you, right?
Possibly.
Then I'll say to you is then go to any of whether the West Bank or the Gaza Strip, when it opens up, when you can get into the Gaza Strip, but you can go to the West Bank and talk to the Palestinians and get an idea. And then you might start to form an understanding as to why this conflict continues. If you got something out of our discussion, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it to show others that it is possible to have respectful conversations about anything, even the war in the Middle East. And if you're keen on more reporting from that conflict, the Israel-Hamas war, head over to thetruthaboutthewar.com, where you can also chip in to help us fund our reporting on this conflict. Thetruthaboutthewar.com.